I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the Morris Township Board of Adjustment for February 12th, 2024. The legal notice required in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act has been satisfied, and a statement certifying same will be executed. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Santiago, roll call, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
That's what I noted.
Mr. Goldberg,
Here.
Mr. Trachtenberg,
Here.
Miss Simmons,
Here.
Mr. Schuster,
Here.
Mr. Benoit,
Here.
Mr. Kramer,
Here.
Mr. Woodford,
Here.
Mr. Hanson,
Here.
Mr. Phillips,
Here.
Mr. Oler,
Here.
and I, Sonia Santiago, here.
First matter is swearing in. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's correct.
Ms. Simmons?
Yes, sir.
oath of
Yeah,
office.
would you please stand? We do it right here is good. Raise your right hand and just repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will
the
support
Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and I will bear faith and allegiance to the same
and I will bear faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
So help me God.
So help me God.
And the official oath of office, I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties of the office of the Board of Adjustment,
all the duties of the office of the Board of Adjustment,
alternate member,
alternate member,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
There you go. Welcome back again.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to the public hearing. BA-14-23, SLOC Acquisitions LLC.
Turn it on, Mark. Thank you. You got a light?
Hello? Hello?
Do I put my sound on here?
No, you're just gonna share the screen.
Okay. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Frank Vitolo, Sills, Cummis and Gross, on behalf of the applicant. I'm going to share screen here. We can get started. One second here. I'm assuming this works in present mode, right? If I press present, it's going to present it too. Am I getting it? Mm-mm. Let me see here. Hold on. Ah, here we go. Okay. Well, good evening again, everybody. So tonight, we're going to change things up a little bit. And I'll get to that in a second. This is the agenda for this evening that we'd like to follow. First, I'm going to give some brief background and explain why we think it's time for a reset with our application. We're going to go over some plan revisions that we'd like to highlight for everybody. We're going to show you the original plan and how we've changed it. Then I'm going to show you a broader picture of the actual revised concept. This will make sense some more later, but some examples of some signage and then some questions and discussions. First, I wanted to say we do appreciate the public and the board's input and questions to date in this process. As oftentimes when you have objectors in a case, the entire dynamic of the hearings change. The parties on both sides sometimes dig in their heels, and what should be an exchange of ideas and constructive criticism, it becomes adversarial and a lot of times unproductive. This happened during the last hearing. Rather than continuing down that path, which I certainly don't want to do, we thought it would be a good time to reset, revise our plans, and see where we are on this application and see where we are with the board. Let me first begin by saying that my clients want these homes to complement and enhance this already beautiful neighborhood. And I believe that message has gotten lost a little bit during the hearings. Tonight, we're going to refocus on how we intend to be good neighbors, both in the way our revised concept responds to the board and the public's comments, and with some new enhancement that we believe benefit all of the neighbors and the greater Morris Township community. We're not submitting new plans this evening. We're presenting a revised concept for the board and the public's consideration. After that, we're going to ask for your questions and your opinions. If we believe there's enough support to proceed, we'll invest in revised plans, we'll submit them, we'll bring back our witnesses, and we'll complete our case. If, despite the revisions and some of the compromises that we've made, there's no path to 5 votes in this case, we will likely stand down and resubmit revised plans during the new Affordable COA round in 2025. We would much rather continue and bring this project to fruition. So let me, with that, start into our presentation. The first slide I'm going to show to you is a summary. This is a summary of the revisions that we've made to our plan. And as you can see up on the screen, we have the original plan and then we have the proposed plan.
Frank, before you get
Yep,
too
sure.
far, do we have this already? What I'm getting at is maybe I should just mark it as an exhibit.
Yeah, sure.
And if we don't already have it, would you just email your presentation to Sonia so we have it that way?
Sure. So I've got copies of all of this, this presentation for the board. I'll actually hand them out right now.
Okay.
This is, I'm marking this as A8. There is an A7 that I'll mark in a second. This is A8. This is the exact same table that we have here. And I'll also give you A10, which is a copy of the presentation that I'm going to show. So if you'd like to give everyone one of these, and then just one copy goes to Mr. Aller. That's the presentation. Sure. So I'm going to run through these one by one, and then we're actually going to go into some greater detail when we look at the full plan. If there's extras, Mr. Phillips and the engineer could also get a copy. So the first item, and probably the most important item for purposes of our financials on the project, is that we're reducing the number of homes in the project from 16 to 14. So we're reducing it by 2 homes. And this comes both by comments we heard from board members, but also comments we heard from the public. And as you'll see in the revised site plan, which I'll distribute soon, it does free up and make the site a little more functional. The second part, we originally had proposed the pocket park. That is not in our revised concept plan. The pocket park became difficult for us to pull off. We had issues of access. We had an easement behind our property that the property owner who has rights to the easement does not want us to use for that purpose, and said that he will be fighting us on that. So without access in the back, without access in the front, you're not going to have a park that no one can get to. So instead, we're proposing to deed restrict those 2 lots for up to 4 affordable townhomes, up to 4 on that property. The way we do that is we would deed restrict the property, and then we would buy it, deed restrict it, and then hopefully sell it or contribute it to an organization who could build affordable townhomes on the site. So that's what we're proposing for those 2 lots in the front. With respect to the turnaround, there's been so many comments and good discussion about fixing this turnaround. So what we've done is we've taken the turnaround, and I'll show this to you, from the middle of the interior roadway, and we've moved it to the end. So it's a true turnaround, and we don't need fire truck K-turns or anything like that. Vehicles can go around the turnaround and make that movement. We've increased the minimum building-to-building separation. That was also a concern, that the buildings were close together, from 15 feet to 20 feet. There was a concern on the board that they didn't like, or in the public too, that there were so many garages that were facing the street. So we went from 5 of 6 homes with side-facing garages to 13 of 14. So only 1 home in the whole development now has a street-facing garage. The board had concerns about access for landscaping and delivery vehicles and mail service. You'll see on the new plan, we've included a dedicated pull-off for landscaping, delivery vehicles, and we have a common mailbox that's also accessible by this pull-off. We've increased the number of dedicated visitor spaces from 9 to 10. We have internal sidewalks now on both sides of the interior roadway. And these weren't on the initial plans, but in the spirit of being better, good and better neighbors, we thought we were trying to think of ways we can have our property integrate better with the community and the neighbors. So we are proposing to install "Welcome to Springbrook" or similar signage or markers at the 202 entrance and also the 287 entrance of the Springbrook neighborhood. And I'll show you a couple examples of that. And we're also willing to beautify Spring Place with trees and plantings as you come off of 202 past our property and up towards the rest of Springbrook. So those are the highlights of the concept that we're going to propose this evening, which I think you'll agree address many of the issues that both the neighbors and the board had concerns about. Next slide. This is just a side-by-side. This shows the site plan that we were discussing at our last meeting on January 30th. And this on the right, and I'll show you a bigger one. This was just so you all can get just a broad comparison of the 2 plans. That is the concept that we're showing you this evening. You'll see that the turnaround has been moved down to the end of the street. I mean, you'll notice just generally it's less congested, it's spread out further, and we'll drill closer into detail as to the drop-off areas and the visitor spaces, and you'll be able to see more detail on that. So this is a larger version of the proposed concept plan. You can see from the roadway that there is both guest parking. You see the six stalls along the road, and you also can see this area here. I'll just stand up. This is where the pull-off is on the interior roadway, where you can access the mailbox. We have deliveries. You could have landscaping vehicles. There was concern that they would get stacked up. You also see that there's now sidewalk all the way around on both sides of the street. You'll see that there's more space between the units, and you'll also see the lack of the front-facing garages. All of the garages but one are now side-facing on this. And you'll also see that we're not showing the pocket park on this slide because of the proposed deed restriction for those 2 lots for affordable townhomes. these are some examples of the signage that we were thinking. Something that's more than just a a plain sign, more of a marker, a welcoming to Springbrook, to really not only show our appreciation to be part of the neighborhood, but also we think it would be nice to have and demarcate where the Springbrook neighborhood actually is in Morris Township. In the end, we just want to be good neighbors. This is a photo from Neighbor Day. Do you know that there's a Neighbor Day every year? That's us. So the point of all this was to do an overview of a concept. And like I said, if it's something that we think the board will work with us on, it's something we'll submit our plans, we'll bring all our witnesses back, and it's going to cost a lot. We're happy to do it though, if there's some light at the end of the tunnel here. If it appears that we don't have, the votes or anywhere near the votes, like I said, we'll pack up our things and we'll come back in 25 and we'll give it another go. So with that, I would, really encourage and ask for some discussion or questions. I hate to use the word poll, but it would be nice to have a poll to see where we are in this application.
Well, Frank,
Yeah.
you probably are aware of it. The board doesn't really do a poll.
No, I gotcha. That's
But
why I was
get
hesitant to
the
say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll, I'm sure, have some questions for you and comments, and you'll get an idea.
Sure.
So I might as well start it off. This past weekend, I drove over to James Place, the development off of James Street, and to look and get enough feel for the 20-foot wide roadways and parking situation, and also turnarounds. And I noticed that they were, all the major turnarounds were cul-de-sacs. And I was going to come in tonight and say, I would like to see cul-de-sac and not a turnaround where things can get overcrowded. So the 20-foot roadways, I think, are for a small area like this, small development, are very appropriate. James Places are much larger and they seem to be surviving fine. And with the cul-de-sac, I think it's a great improvement. So I like the revised plans as I see them right now. And, it's subject to, what else comes out. But my first impression is that this is a much better plan than what was originally presented. I do have a question about, you said deed restriction for townhomes. Those two lots are RA 15, is that correct? Two lots up at.
I believe so, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so that would require variances sometime in the future, or would that be part of this application?
If we do require the variance, it would be part of this application. Yes.
Would that be required?
I'd have to take a look at it, but it probably does. I think if it's RA 15, there's no multifamily
Correct.
permitted in RA 15, so it'll be a variance.
All right. Anybody else with comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think for the board's benefit and benefit of the public, could you talk about if there's not sufficient agreement, you might wait till after the 2025 period and what that might mean for the application so we all understand what you're really talking about?
Yeah. So I don't know exactly what it would mean for the application. I know that in 2025, there's going to be an analysis of all the developable land in town. And I also know that at that point, there will be, if the township hasn't met its number or has to meet its number, there'll be a lot more pressure on the township to build affordable housing. We think we have a nice balance here where, we've integrated now back into the project some affordable housing that will help you on your number. But come 2025, there will be developers and other applicants. I'm not saying it's going to be us, but who knows who will leverage that affordable housing to maybe get a more dense project than anticipated. So, there were multifamily or townhome developments proposed for this parcel. I think there was a very strong reaction from this board and the community in general that said they didn't want a dense project like that. I'm just saying, if it's not us or someone else, there will be leverage in 25 to force a more dense project. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not saying we're going to do it. It could be someone else. We think we're staying in this. We're committed, and we'd like to do this project. But who the heck knows what's going to happen in a year or two? So it is a concern, I think, that this board should have, that you have a chance to have a very nice project that you can help us shape and get through, or you might have a tougher choice in 25 where you have developers and others who want a much more dense product here because you got to satisfy your number. And given what's going on the last couple of years, and the next 2 years, if the interest rates don't go down, there's just not a lot of building that's going on right now. So it's going to get interesting. So, if this is a unique parcel, it's on a golf course. It's not something I don't think you'd want a very dense project. And we're offering this, I think, as a nice alternative.
Would you consider reducing the size of the homes?
Can I ask why, though?
They're very large for a small piece of property. The zoning, as you're aware, allows for 130,000 square foot homes. So it would only fit one home. So your proposal, at least before, would be putting 16 and now 14 homes where the zone allows for basically one home. Maybe you could propose two. So right behind this property is another 150 acres of golf course. So if you sell off this portion of 4 acres and that 4 acres and that 4 acres, it could get to be a lot of homes. And they, of course, would look for the same density as what you probably would get approved for here. So my point is, this is a really big precedent. It's not like it's an isolated piece of property and we don't have to worry about, somebody coming in and looking, doing the same thing. It's not isolated. And so generally speaking, OSGU and the township, it's pretty open property. Maybe there's church, maybe there's a town hall, maybe there's a school. There's a lot of the OSGU properties are pretty open. So this is not going to be open. What you're looking at here, and if you had said, well, if we do a crescent road with 8 homes, it'd be easier to digest. You're still looking at 14 homes plus now another 4 homes. So my concern is a precedent where, this may be less dense, it may be more favorable. I like all the things you presented, and I really appreciate your going back and looking at this and reading the board and saying, yeah, I can understand this, and maybe if we tweak this and tweak that, I really appreciate that. But from our perspective, and certainly from my perspective, it's still a big swing on the zone.
So what size homes, would you think were appropriate, just since we're having the conversation?
Well, I don't know, 2,500 square feet? I don't know if any of the board members want to chime in on that.
Yeah, no, and to be fair, Mr. Benoit, you seem like the one who has the board who has the most concerns about the project, which is not neither here nor there. But I have we've all been down this road where one of the board members or a couple of board members really don't like a project, and they keep making us come back with more and more concessions. And then when it comes to the vote, they vote no anyway.
That's
And,
not
and
fair
that's,
to you.
that's murderous to us, you know,
That's
because
not
it's,
fair to you. And
yeah,
I've seen
yeah.
that also, and I
Yeah.
want to avoid that.
yeah,
And my suspicion is that I may appear to be the one with the most concern, but I'm probably just the most vocal. So, not that I'm speaking for everybody, but I think that these are issues that we as a board, setting precedent on a zone is really important going forward.
okay. So as far as the number now, it seems like you're a little more comfortable, but the size of the home still is a big concern.
Well, a little more comfortable because you came down two. It still seems crowded to me. I don't know. My biggest concern is, and I said this the first night, I think, I'm afraid that this become like suburban sprawl on Springbrook. And even though looking at the design, it's not going to look like suburban sprawl in terms of the view of the houses, but the density and the size, I'm afraid, will shock the person driving past. And we all have experienced that. We've all experienced going down the street and all of a sudden you see, they go, whoa, who approved that? You know? And when I see something like that, I think, well, probably something could be done because I'm the first one to say people need to live somewhere. We need to have homes. You know, everyone in this room, if somebody came before the board when their house is approved and said, we don't want that house, and the zoning board or board of this did not approve the house, where would they be living? So I understand the importance of having residential construction and having places people can live. We live in a great area, you know, and it's that much more important to keep it that way. So those are all the thoughts going through my mind as I look at this project and other projects.
No,
So
appreciate it.
You've really done I really appreciate your coming through and reading our board's minds and making adjustments and stuff. I'm not saying that I'm there all the way, but I do have concern about the effect on the zone.
No,
So
point taken. Thank you. Yeah.
So Frank, just to follow up on Mr. Benoit, just remind me, the size of the homes that are in the current plan are roughly how many square feet?
35 guys? Not that. 3,600 feet? Yeah, max. They said some will be smaller.
Okay. And if you eliminated that park site and you went to 14 homes on the remaining property, what would the density be?
Yeah, so I knew you would ask that question. And the current plan is not to merge the lots. We've gotten enough that we can keep it the same density as we initially proposed with the lot, with the park lot included. So whatever we had in our initial application, we can maintain and then have those affordable lots separately deeded from the property.
So does that mean the
Yeah.
the proposed property line would change? How do you keep the same density if you're
Yeah,
taking out
yeah,
the
there's a
park site?
little, well, no, so there's a little bit of land that we intend to include on the golf club side,
Okay,
you know, to equal it out, not much.
okay,
And if, also with respect to, you know, our goal has been to try and meet the R15 because it's the closest zone. And we meet it
Mhm.
without having to merge the two lots on top. We still meet the R15, and that was our goal.
okay. And you said up to 4 townhomes
Correct.
on the, what I'll call the park
Yes.
park lot? Did you look at it? Would 4 townhomes fit there?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it could, you know, again, it could support 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, we don't know
I
what the
mean,
number,
Yeah.
like what the town might need in
Correct.
another year or two, right? So,
I mean, there would be one curb cut on Mount Kimball to access those 2 lots. That's how you would, there would be no access from the rear. I know that the property owner who has that easement has concerns about any additional use. We would not use that easement
right.
at all.
and it's probably premature to ask, but any thought about it, those 4 units being rental or for sale units?
Yeah, no, I don't think we have any preference.
I just got a clarification. You said it meets the R15 zone requirement. All right, that's just for the setbacks, it's not for the size of the lot. The size is less than R15 zone.
Density.
Density, right?
Yeah, density.
It's more like, there isn't one, but an R13. Or it's more like 13,000 rather than 15,000. So it meets the setbacks, but not the size.
15,000 per unit. This is where the lawyer gets into trouble, testifying on planning issues.
I'll go back and do the math. It seems to me
Yeah.
that it's about 13,000.
And after the meeting, we're certainly happy to supply a letter
Okay.
clarifying that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, other board members, can you weigh in on this?
I definitely appreciate the changes that have been made. Obviously, this is just a very surface, because this is a concept, not a plan. We don't have actual plans to look at. But what was worrying me, and I was thinking a lot about landscaping trucks, delivery vehicles. Obviously, I asked the question about the mail because I'm familiar with how that works in other developments. And I face this every day. So I'm aware of what those requirements have become. So it looks to me like you've answered a lot of the mail. Now, when you talk about, by the way, is the road going to be 22 feet all through or just at the circle?
Yeah, there are points that it's a little less than 22,
Okay.
but yeah, for the most part in the circle.
Yeah,
And
'cause
by
I
the way,
was-
Mr. Kramer,
I was thinking a lot about, I mean, when I drive here, obviously not in the winter, I come down Old Glen Road, and when there's a landscaping truck and trailer on Old Glen Road, they park and they sit there while the vehicles come out. And Old Glen Road is not a 20-foot wide road. I haven't measured it, but I'm pretty sure it's not 20 feet. And that is a substantial blockage on the road. I think our engineer knows what I'm talking about. So my thought is, if you had a landscaping truck, if you don't give them a place to go with your old plan, the residents can't get in and out with 20-foot wide road. That was my thought process. So you have dealt with that a lot better than it was dealt with before. So I definitely appreciate where you're going with this. Yeah, changing the number of homes is probably a smart move. I noticed you took out the furthest one, the one that was in the corner there, which, yeah, it would have been real hard to get at.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Goldberg.
I'll agree with Mr. Benoit and Mr. Kramer that appreciate the revised concept. As I was driving over here tonight, I had questions prepared for, I thought it was going to be the landscape architect, and we were going in a different direction. So not having this presented right here in an open forum for review, consideration, questions is appreciated, but it is sort of a bit of a shift. So, but having said that, to Mr. Kramer's point about the landscape truck and the pullout for the delivery, I was actually sort of leaning towards thinking that they're going to park where they want to park when they want to park there. They're not going to necessarily utilize it, right? If you're an Amazon driver, you're going to pull as close to the residence as you can. I mean, we've seen it all happening around us on the daily basis. So although it's acknowledged and addressed, I don't necessarily know if it makes me feel any better that it's going to actually be utilized as intended. So I'll say that I am concerned about the density, the number of homes for the zone. To Mr. Benoit's point about the sort of sprawling nature of what would be there in the view shed and what would be observed, it still, to me, seems too dense. And then my last sort of question for you is, having thought about this before, but in terms of deed restrictions and how they operate, maybe you can help educate me and the board on the option of allowing for up to the 4, affordable units. But is there another option if you were just to, and I don't know if this would be, I don't know if there's a a pro to the township or a con to the township, but just to have it deeded to the township to be utilized in some fashion to be determined? Is that an option, or is that something that's even allowable? or-
Yeah.
I'm not sure that the town would want it to do that.
It's
I'm
yours
not
if you
sure
want
either.
it, Mr. Goldberg.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's yours if you want it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Because I didn't know, if,
Yeah.
again, with the financing of,
Yeah.
of having the units there to go to market to,
Yeah.
sort of, be as crude as to get the money, I was just sort of curious if there are other options and how that's sort of viewed. So.
Yeah, I mean, without really looking at it too hard, I'm doubtful that the town would want to take the lot.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That's why I asked.
By the way, if I forgot to add, I am very mindful personally of 2025 or whenever that next shoe is going to drop. I'm very concerned about what could happen because we've already had applications returned to us. You should really think about this again, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We've had a couple in the last couple of years,
Right.
and I personally want to avoid that.
Every lawyer conference I attend where there's developer and developer attorneys, they're, licking their chops for 2025. So.
Other board members? Yes.
Mr. Patolo, and I too want to thank you for you and your team listening to the concerns of the board. It's greatly appreciated, and I think that some of the thoughts that you all have is going in the right direction. So thank you very much for that. In terms of the elimination of the pocket part, if I recall, there was also a pedestrian path that was going to lead to that. And again, the plans were really quick, so couldn't
Yeah.
see whether or not there was a retention of that pedestrian path, or is that going away completely?
That will go away.
And then my other question has to do with the signage that you all are offering. And you did show a couple of examples. Where exactly would those signs be? Because I'm gathering that they wouldn't necessarily be on this property, but rather into the entrance of the neighborhood.
Correct. And honestly, we would love to work with the neighbors on that. And, even, we could even, donate to a fund. The neighbors could take control of that. So we'd like to work with the neighbors on it, pick a spot or pick spots that work. I'm sure we're all familiar with the signs into some of these neighborhoods. And we did notice it was a kind of a glaring thing that there wasn't any here, nothing to mark the Springbrook neighborhood. So we'll be happy to work with the neighbors on that. We don't think we would dictate where that goes. We'd like to hear from the people who live in the neighborhood.
You should also give some thought to who would be maintaining it then too,
Yes.
Right.
even if it's off-site.
Yeah.
Yeah, because those signs, they're great for the first 10, 15 years, but down the line, you've got lamp posts that have to be replaced.
Yep. The HOA would
or-
agree to maintain it.
And that gets expensive.
Yeah.
As Mr. Trachtenberg knows.
Yes.
He happens to be the treasurer in our neighborhood association.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So my biggest issue of the project was always the density. The small road, the space between the houses. And I get it, more houses, more profitability. My magic number, just looking at everything, was kind of around 12 units with a true cul-de-sac turnaround at the end of the road. So that's kind of where I'm sitting right now on the project. I'm not going to reiterate what everyone else has said. I pretty much agree with what's been said thus far. So just so you have an idea of my thought process.
And Mr. Schuster, if the homes were smaller, would that affect your opinion at all, or you just have that number?
Listen, I think the smaller homes is a good idea. On the one side of the golf course, there are larger homes. On the 202 side, they're a little bit smaller. So, yeah, that's a possibility. But everything was just so packed in there. And I was like, for such
Yeah.
a great idea. The concept
Yeah.
is good, but everything was just so packed in there that I was really concerned about that. And I think that's a concern of the neighborhood too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Trachtenberg.
So I pretty much agree with everything that's been said. I appreciate you coming back with this proposal, etc. And I just, I'm relatively new here on the Board of Adjustment, but I don't understand what it means to be a deed restricted for up to 4 affordable townhouses. Could you just educate me on
Yeah, sure.
what that means?
So we would agree as part of this approvals process to write a restriction in the deed of this property that gets recorded with the county
Mhm.
that limits the development on the property to an affordable unit or 4 affordable units, whatever the number may be. And that's something that a subsequent purchaser would have to abide by.
Okay. So you're not saying that you would be the developer of those townhouses. You're just saying you would get it set up so that somebody else could step in and put
Correct.
them
We
up.
would buy the property and deed restrict it and hopefully find, and I'm sure we would, find someone to come in and construct these units, these affordable units.
Okay.
Just from logistics standpoint, would these lots 8 and 9 then merge to be one lot?
I think the two of them, it would make sense to merge them if we had 4 units on the same, I don't know how you would
merge
do it.
those lots and keep them separate from
Correct,
101.
correct.
Okay. All right. Mr. Hanson, any thoughts?
No, not really. Not without a set of plans in front of me with
Yeah.
dimensions and profiles and stuff like that. But from a perspective, I was gonna suggest that they drop the last 2 units and put a cul-de-sac in. They come around with a different concept, with basically a loop road, in a sense,
Right,
without the cul-de-sac.
right. But still serves the same purpose.
Still serves the same purpose.
Oh, and-
Other than that, I'd be concerned to see where the stormwater's going. I thought I saw an area behind one of the houses that's going to be a detention basin where that last house, unit 1, was supposed to be put.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how they control the runoff since things seem to get moved around a little bit.
Paul, any comments?
I don't have any comments at this time, Mr. Chairman, but I do want to follow up on the deed restriction issue on the Route 202 lot. So if I'm understanding it, Frank, correctly, is that as part of the application, your client would purchase the lot, put the deed restriction, but there's no guarantee that anyone's going to come along and build those affordable units. And it's 100% affordability project, so there's obviously going to be some subsidy needed to do that because there's no market rate units to amortize the cost and subsidy of the affordable units. And the only other thing I might add is if this truly, were a post-2025 inclusionary project, someone would have to build those units. And that's something you just might want to think about as you move forward with that.
No, I appreciate it. And I will say that there are organizations like Habitat for Humanity, that would take on this kind of project and could build 100% affordable. Oh, no, for sure. For sure.
From our affordable housing trust fund.
Yes.
I don't mean to be argumentative.
Agreed. No, I
You and your
agree.
client should think
Yeah.
that through a little bit further.
Yes.
And I know we had a similar project a couple of years ago where where a older carriage house was converted to multifamily units, and as part of that condition of approval, they had to provide, I can't remember, it was 1 or 2 units off-site, and it was a condition of approval that those units be, I don't know, a building permit, C of O or something, because it was spun and sold as an inclusionary project. So, I think it's great that you're offering the affordable, but I think from the township's perspective, it'd be nice if we could see that someone's actually going to build it. And if it's strictly affordable and you're not building it, and we all know that the Habitats and the other groups, Homeless Solutions, they're looking for subsidies because, no one can basically build it on their own, based on the rents that are charged. So just think about that.
No,
That's all.
absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
I just have a follow-up question.
Sure.
From Mr. Phillips's comments spurred a thought in my mind. I think at the first meeting, at the onset of the introduction of the application, there was a comment made that there's no requirement, and I don't know if it was based on the lot size or the way the project was structured, for there to be a contribution to the Open Space Trust Fund based on the application as
Not the
presented.
open space,
No,
the
the-
affordable-
I'm sorry, affordable
Affordable
housing.
housing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. For the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
That's
Is that,
accurate. To be accurate, that because they were not proposing attached housing, they are not obliged to meet the mandatory set-aside ordinance, not the contribution ordinance to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So,
Okay. So the
they're-
15% set aside or
They
whatever?
don't have to make because they're not attached housing, as part of this application, they don't have to provide any affordable housing. They're offering it as part of this application. I'm sure we're going to hear from their planner.
Yes.
He's going to provide some nexus in terms of the planning arguments and case for that. But just to be clear, they're
Thank
not
you.
required to provide an affordable housing set aside for this product.
That's what I was looking for clarification on. But they're not required to, but in your experience, Mr. Phillips, on these types of applications, have you seen the developer or the applicant in turn also make a contribution to the,
Well, I mean, it's their case.
right.
I mean, they're
Is that, or is that
making
something you would be
a
willing
case.
to consider as
And
part
we're
of the
gonna have to
application?
wait to hear from their planner, but I'm surmising that this offer on their part is to, basically provide affordable housing that will help, the township meet some portion of its obligation. But again, I'm not
Gotcha.
their witness.
Right.
But I'm assuming that that's part of this. They don't have to do that. And you heard Frank's preamble about, in his introduction about, they'd like to, move something at this point rather than wait till 2025. So.
All right.
Yeah, and it's sort of what I was saying to Mr. Benoit before. If I say yes to you, I'm not sure that gets you there. So, we just keep getting drawn
Well,
down
no,
this road, and,
yeah.
and so we're trying to read tea leaves here, and it's not easy. But I would say, Mr. Benoit, too, I cannot conceive, and I just bet on the Super Bowl. I lost half the bets, but I did win half. I cannot conceive of any scenario in 25, if this project isn't done here like this, that you'd get a less dense project. I cannot, I mean, I would bet the house that no one's coming in here with a project less dense than 14 beautiful homes. You ain't getting that.
I
So,
appreciate that.
yeah,
It's good for public and everyone else to hear that as well.
yeah. Thank you.
Guess you've got a sense of where the board is on this. Do you have anything you want to add at this point? I also want to say to the public, he is not under oath. He's not, so we're not questioning him. I would encourage the attorneys who are here tonight representing different members of the public or groups of the public to contact counsel with their concerns and maybe have some sort of discussion. So we can, if that's okay by you.
Listen, from this process started out where there was a group that got together and they met at the firehouse
Right.
twice. And then we presented to a group of neighbors up at Springbrook. But it's a shame, really. There was never a meeting between us. There was no meeting where we all sat in a room and talked about the project, which, we certainly tried. I mean, I did the restoration hardware project. We had like 6 meetings with the neighbors and they were together and we worked through it and we got to a place where we needed to be. But unfortunately, this process has been more adversarial, which I don't personally like. I mean, I'm happy to meet the challenge, this is what I do for a living. But I don't particularly like the way it happened. And, it's unfortunate. There were flyers and all, and it just created this groundswell of information that, and that's why I said after last meeting, I don't want to do that anymore. We don't want to do that anymore. We'd much rather come to some consensus. And it's like everything else in life. When there's a settlement, the best settlements in the world is when both parties are equally unhappy. That's the best settlement. because you're never going to have one party happy. And it just doesn't work that way. We all know that. So we're happy to meet with the neighbors. I mean, that's still we're open to do that. You know, of course, they can call us with comments and additional questions or what have you. And we'll stay after the meeting tonight if the neighbors want to talk as well.
Okay, great. Board members, anything else? Tola, anything else you wish to add at this point?
I don't have anything else. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the ownership would just like me to note, and it's a good point. You know, the cul-de-sac versus the loop. The cul-de-sac, you have less green, less open space. It takes up more space.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons we opted for the loop. It gives you more green space in the project. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate it. Anything else from board professionals? Mr. Oler?
Now, I just think if you decide to go that route, you know, it would go back to the TCC for review and some discussion about the park lots and maybe bifurcating those lots from your application for just the D1, you know, without a site plan. And I got to think about that a little bit, but I think that's probably the way to go.
Okay. That sounds like a good idea.
Because if you're going to do the deed restriction, you want to be sure that the variance is in place, right? So maybe we would just bifurcate those lots for the D1.
Yeah. Yeah. This is why we're having this. That's
Yeah.
a great idea. I mean, it will, you know, probably go in that direction.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that's all we have on our affirmative presentation. Happy to hear from the other lawyers, whoever, you know.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr.
Just
Oler.
an administrative question, because this is a public meeting, right? I mean,
Right.
so I know no one's under oath. Mr. Vitola is not taking questions directly from the public, but is there anything inappropriate from hearing from the public if there's anything? they want to
I
say?
would rather let them discuss their concerns privately with Mr. Patola rather than having an extended record that is nothing that is sworn testimony.
Okay, thank you.
And an application that's not really before the board then with
Other than
those
the
changes.
concepts.
Right.
So,
I would rather wait
Yeah.
until for the board, members of the public to weigh in.
That makes
That
sense
will
to
be
me.
their right. But I would encourage them, if they have concerns, to speak to Mr. Patola now after the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, board members? So what do we do now? Just like, so is there any other business before the board now?
all right. So Frank, we're going to conclude your hearing this evening. We're not scheduling anything further until you give some thought as to which way you're going to go, right?
Yeah. I mean, we'd have to renotice anyway.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
but you'll give us any extension necessary? I
Yes.
assume?
Yes.
Great. Okay, why don't you make an announcement?
So with respect to extensions, though, that's a good point. I don't know, 6 months?
They're groaning.
I don't know, you need a new plan, you're going to go back to the TCC?
Three
you
months.
know,
How about that?
3 months?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So extend time, or are we now, middle of February?
End of May?
So end of May,
That's fine.
right? Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll say May 31, right?
Yes.
2024, okay.
All right.
We have to get them on the calendar?
No,
No.
not yet.
No,
They're
no.
going to go back to the TCC with the plans so they can,
Process would be based on getting to the TCC and,
So there will be 6 months until we see you.
maybe, maybe not. We'll see. There's a lot of information already there.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
So for members of the public, all that means is that this application is kind of going on hiatus for a little while. Applicant's going to think about filing it in a different way. You should speak to them with any concerns that you have or thoughts or comments. And the applicant will revise its application, go back to the TCC for a technical review before it comes back to this board. And whenever that is, it will be on notice to you, same as it was before, certified mail.
And you can also check the township website and for each agenda, so you'll, in case you miss anything. Okay, thank you. If we have no other meeting business, we can make a motion to adjourn.
Move for adjournment?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.